What is up, YouTube? Today is the day. The day many of you have asked for in the DMs. The day many of you have prophesized. Today is the Mike Boyle debate. And kind of boiled over yesterday when I made a meme. I like making memes. You know how I am. Kind of poking fun at some of the philosophies that Mike Boyle follows, some of the Stuart McGill philosophies, some of the Ben Patrick philosophies. I'll show a little clip of the thing right here. AI is going to take over the world with memes. It's unbelievably powerful, and I'm all aboard the AI meme train. So, made that meme yesterday, and he wasn't a huge fan of it, and rightfully so. Poking, you don't have to be fun. You don't have to be a fan of jokes at your expense. I understand that. Somebody makes a meme of me, I'm probably going to laugh at the meme first if it's a good one, and then I'm going to poke back, and I'm going to troll, and I'm going to meme back. So I understand that thought process. But how we handled the meme after has been the summary of how he handles almost every debate and every argument that is thrown his way, which is ignore all points made, call somebody a troll, call somebody mean, call somebody a bully, call somebody that's pulling the field backwards, say you're not going to waste your time, say you've been here longer than somebody, and then block them. I haven't got blocked yet. That's probably coming pretty shortly. But it's just not my favorite way at all of handling arguments. I think it's a very poor way of handling arguments. I think it's a very poor way of pushing back on ideas that you don't agree with. And I think it shows a lot about your own philosophies and your own ideas and the strength of them when you can't make a counterpoint, when you can't argue it back, and you have to resort to that person's being mean to me, I'm going to block, I'm going to create this safe space, right? So going to cover all of that. I have my computer in front of me. I have notes in front of me that I'm going to go and just make sure I get all of it. I played football, got a little CTE in the head. Don't want to forget any of it. I'm going to try and do this in one take. If I have pauses that we cut back into, it's because I forgot something. I'll put it in here, kind of go from there. But I'm going to try to keep this as organic as possible in one take. Keep ripping from there. And the first point that I got, and I think this is the most important point, is when we are debating, when we are disagreeing on things, the number one thing is I have no ill will towards Mike Boyle. I don't have hate towards him. I don't have ill will towards his family or his business or wish anything bad happened to him or wish his company didn't work. He doesn't need to hear that from me. He's super successful in his own regard. I'm saying that more so for a lot of the DMs that I get after you troll somebody or meme somebody. And if somebody agrees with you, it's not even the anti people, the people defending Mike Boyle, the people defending Ben Patrick, whatever it is. It's not even that. It's more so the people that are agreeing with me, but just to the far extent of they just want to say F you to somebody. They want to watch somebody burn. And I just don't agree with that thought process. We coach PE. We are recess teachers in in the biggest regard. We get paid a lot of money to work with beautiful athletes. We get a lot of respect for our job. We are in unbelievably blessed situations, and I don't. He has obviously earned the position that he has been in. He's super successful, and I don't think it's worth hating somebody because of recess, right? And I just don't take it that seriously, right? So just want to emphasize that point, number one overall. And actually going to draw on one of the rules that he had in his 25 rules that he wished he knew 25 years ago in strength conditioning. He had an article about that was pretty big in the strength conditioning field. And rule number 14 was confusing disagreement with dislike. And again, I want to double down on that point. I don't think he really follows his own point that he makes there, and I'm going to get to that point in a little bit. And I don't think many people in our field follow that point very well at all. But I do want to emphasize that point, that do not confuse this disagreement with hatred. Dislikes, we probably dislike each other in some sense. I feel like if we actually had a beer or had a dinner, you could get along with the person, right? But we fundamentally disagree on a lot of philosophies, and usually you don't hang out with people that you fundamentally disagree with all the time. But that does not mean I hate him, does not mean I wish any ill will, and I think it's important to emphasize that. On that note, I do think it is important to have competition. And this is the first part of our fundamental difference. I do believe competition is important. I do believe calling out bullshit where you see it, regardless of who says it, is important. I believe when you walk onto a field, when you walk onto a court, and there is somebody better than you, that draws out the best in you. When you are facing somebody that is hot that day, that somebody that has a skill set that you don't know how to defend, it makes you a better athlete. in the same way that it makes you a better coach when you're debating them and you have to defend your points and you have to come up with counter memes and you have to come up with counterpoints to what they're doing, or you have to shift and change your own ideas, which is amazing. That means the field moved forward. That means truth was closer to be found, right? But I think a lot of times in our field, as soon as somebody has competition in our field, as soon as somebody pushes back, especially on an authority figure like Mike Boyle, it turns into this game of you're a bad person for pushing back, you're a troll, you're moving the field backwards, you're not taking things seriously, you're being a bully. And it's super funny because it comes from all these super alpha males with like American flags in their bios and like this whole anti-censorship thing that they believe in. And then as soon as it becomes like in front of their face, or they get called out, they're the ones that are getting called out, or their friends getting called out, then it becomes censorship. They love the censorship part there. You need to be quiet. You need to not say these things. You need to not be a troll, which is just the worst way to handle points, right? Like if the point needs to be silenced, there is a lot of truth in that point, most likely. Look at the books people burn. And if a point can't be challenged, that should tell you a lot about said point. The philosophical truth that that point lies on is probably not very strong, and that is why that point cannot be laughed at. When you and a buddy are making a joke at each other, and they make fun of somebody that you know is like they got you, you laugh at it. It's funny. When they make fun of a joke that is hits a little too close to home. Let's say you make fun of somebody that has like a receding hairline, you make fun of that joke, it's a little too close to home, they get offended. They don't laugh at that, right? And I think the receding hairline joke is a good one here, because I think a lot of times when you get coaches all fired up, it's because you hit them with that receding hairline joke. And I think that's what we did with Boyle yesterday, and it's what we did with the Stuart McGill crowd yesterday, and sometimes with the knees over toes crowd. If a point cannot be challenged, the point is probably not very true, because as every true point can be challenged because it stands on something deeper than your joke, right? The joke's not going to take down the truth of that subject. The point's not going to take down your business, right? But if the truth is real, or the joke is real, it can, and it threatens you, and you feel threatened. And then I feel like that is a lot of what our field does. They feel threatened with this competition, and instead of fixing their point or working on defending their points, they feel that insecurity, and instead of going to go fix it, they just block it, and they say you're a troll, and they say you're a bully, and they write it off. And I just feel like it's a really, really terrible way to handle things. And it goes with his other rule, and this is the first rule in the 25 rules, is knowing it all. He says, I wish I didn't know it all as soon, because he wrote this whole passage about how I can learn from everybody. Everybody can teach me something. I don't know it all. Yet, whenever somebody disagrees with him or argues with him, he has the same thought, he has the same patterns, right? It's call the person a bully, never argue the actual points being made, then block them, or send his crowd after them, or subtweet them, right? It is never facing the facts straight on. It is never challenging the point back. It is never debating the person. It is I know, right? You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just going to block you and go back to my echo chamber. And it is such a dangerous way to operate in a field. It is such a way in which you do not find truth. You find the same thing that you say over and over again in the own echo chamber that you have created. And I really feel like he does abuse this power. He is an authority figure. He is somebody that people look up to, and rightfully so. Again, you have earned that power. You have earned the cult that you have built. You have earned the following in the same way that I have earned my following. You work really, really hard. You work on your message. You work on crafting your abilities. And this is part of like having an opponent like Mike Boyle. It makes me build up my capabilities to challenge somebody like Boyle, to work on my thought processes, to work on my long form content, to work on my short form content, to be able to call out some of these ideas that I don't agree with, right? Without that competition, when you live in an echo chamber, you never really get that ability to work on your own craft, to challenge these ideas. And when you start to abuse this power and you just write off people that are challenging your ideas, and you stop defending the idea itself and start attacking the person, and then on the back end you virtue signal, you say that person's a bully, that person's a troll, you don't have to listen to that, I'm not going to engage in that because I'm better than that, which is just not how any civil discourse goes. You can't just say, nope, I'm not going to listen to you. It's like walking onto a basketball court with a player that's better than you and saying, no, you can't be on the court with me because I need to make my shots. I need to do this kind of thought process. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. And I think that's one of the frustrating points about all of this. It's like this virtue signal followed up with this attacking that people just eat up. It's like, you subtweet, dude. You've built your entire business model off of roasting people for back squatting, performing functional fitness, for doing CrossFit, right? Like, you've built your whole business off of these rebel-like ideas. That is how you've risen to fame. That is the number one way of doing it, and rightfully so. You should attack those ideas. You should have called out those ideas, and you have moved the field forward in that regard. But then when your ideas, when you are no longer the rebel, when you are now the tyrant, you are the king, you have made it. You do not get to push down the rebel and be like, never call out these ideas, never do that, you're just a bully. Dude, you are calling out exactly the methods that got you to where you are at, because now your ideas are the ones being challenged, your ideas are the ones being pushed back on. And I adamantly disagree with that ability to not handle arguments, that disability to handle arguments. If your philosophy is true, if your ideas are right, if you adamantly believe them, then you need to be able to defend them. When they are pushed back on, when they are called out, you need to defend them. You need to not block people. You need to not just write them off. You need to not just say they're immature and bullies. You need to defend the points, especially, and this was the frustrating part about the argument yesterday, is I made the meme to start it, to poke the bear. He made a comment. I came back, he didn't tag me in the comment, of course. It was a subtweet, because he's better than tagging people in the comments, of course. It's much better to be Harvey Dent and Two-Face and talk behind people's back than just be the Joker. That's one of the things that our field loves to do. We will write off trolls all day. We will write off people that are openly calling out ideas, and then we will Two-Face and talk about ideas and talk shit behind people's backs, right? And that's one of the frustrating things too, because I have had multiple coaches and athletes show me text from Mike Boyle and tell me stories from Mike Boyle of he saying what he called our training, the Yoakum strength training. He called it unthoughtful, dangerous, and just silly parkour that will never work with high-level athletes. And then telling him not to do business with me. Like, that was the professional way of handling things. And it's just a gross virtue signal to me. If you're going to be the bad guy, be Joker, right? If you're going to come at people, if that is your role, if you're going to, that's how you're going to defend your ideas, that's how you're going to call people out, then be the Joker. And when people see you, they know who you are. And I really believe he is much more like Harvey Dent, the Two-Face villain in Batman, with the half-burnt face in the Batman movies, where on the outside he is this authority figure, and on the inside, when it comes to talking shit, he's at the max level. And he will do anything for his business to rise, and that involves taking somebody down. So I'm just against the whole philosophy of hiding behind this figure, and getting, like, one of the gross things, he tweeted out yesterday, the most phony strength coaches are the ones that invite you on their podcast and then talk shit behind your back, or something along those lines. And I sent the email. So he invited himself on our podcast 4 years ago. And I was actually interested in hearing his philosophies and why he thought the way that he thought. I wanted to see if he could defend some of these ideas. I wanted to see if there was actually thought behind these ideas, or if it was just the Mike Boyle name. And brought him on the podcast, had that conversation. And in the podcast itself, man, it was pretty frustrating, because I had questions trying to actually figure out stuff, and he went on his script, and whatever. I'm not going to fault him for going on his script. Like, businessmen do that. They go on their script. But you do not get to virtue signal on the back end, where he said the most phony coaches. So I posted the email of him inviting himself on. Then he deletes the tweet. He deletes the whole tweet and edits it and posts it again, so that he can get all these coaches being like, yeah, man, it's just so bad that happened to you. You don't deserve that, Mike Boyle. You deserve so much better. It's like, dude, you're tweeting at me. I answered your tweets. I gave you a long response, and then you deleted it as soon as you didn't like that response and started over to get those virtue signals after, again, building your entire business model off of calling people out, off of doing exactly what I'm doing to you. That is the most frustrating part. I do not believe you should get your cake and eat it too. You don't get both ways. Be the villain or be this ultra super go lucky move the field forward guy, but you're not this guy, so you don't get the benefits of being that guy. And it's very frustrating watching people fall for that trap, watching people fall for the virtue signal trap. And that again is one of my frustrations with this whole thing. It's really not even Boyle that I'm most frustrated with. It is the field that I'm most frustrated with, in that we allow somebody like Boyle to get away with the stuff that he does because we are scared. When I make Mike Boyle post, I get like yesterday's meme. I got 400 Instagram DMs talking about, oh my God, somebody needed to say this about Boyle. Oh my God, I can't believe you actually went at Boyle. Oh my God, long time coming. Can't believe you publicly posted that. And it's very similar to a lot of the stuff that I dealt with at St. Thomas, where the head guy, everybody was so scared of the head guy that they would never say anything, and I became the scapegoat. I was the only guy that could say something. And I really feel like our field has fallen into this trap where we are so scared of somebody like Mike Boyle, so scared that he could have a negative effect on your career, so scared that he is going to tell somebody that has some role in your employment and you could get in trouble that you don't say it. If I'm getting 400 DMs and nobody's saying something, guys, like, voice your opinions. It matters to voice your opinions. Otherwise, you create this echo chamber with your silence creates the echo chamber. Your silence creates this immovable tyrant that needs to be moved, that has bad philosophies, that continually doesn't defend his own ideas, right? And it's very frustrating watching people fall into this trap. And I think it's very important to speak your mind when you don't agree with a philosophy, when you don't agree with something that he is saying, regardless of if he blocks you or not. And this is another point that I was talking to somebody in the DMs about, is having enough faith in yourself to know that one person is not going to alter your career for the rest of your life. Don't give somebody else that power. Have enough faith in your own abilities. I call that Boyle, right? I could lose. For every athlete I lose, I'm going to gain 10. For every coach that doesn't like me because I call that Boyle, I'm going to gain 10, right? For the respect of doing that. Have enough faith in yourself to know you can make it while calling out some of these people. You can make it without sucking on the tit of the tyrant, without sucking on the tit of the king. I think a lot of coaches, they just don't have enough internal belief to understand that regardless of that person, regardless of whoever is in right now, regardless of that, you will still make it. You have enough intrinsic worth. You provide enough as a coach, and that is this ground that I stand on when I call out these coaches. It is not to be a troll. I don't get a high off of being called mean. I don't get a high off of being called a bully. It took me a long time. I was very much stuck in an appeal to authority role for 22 years of my life. It takes a lot, and it took a lot for me to get to a point in which I am able to call out bad ideas, in which I am able to call out philosophies that I don't agree with. And the way that I have done that is I know I provide enough worth in my long form contents. We have 200 podcasts out. We post a 30-minute YouTube video almost every single day. We post an Instagram post every single day. I have enough content out there to show that I am providing value. I am putting out my thoughts out there. I am working with athletes in person and working on this. I'm not just trolling the troll, right? But it allows me to stand on a foundation to know, regardless of what Mike Boyle does with this, regardless of how many people he tells not to work with me because I called out a poor idea of his, I know I can make it because I have enough body of work behind me to stand on and to defend myself with. And I think that's very important for other coaches to know, that when you call out these people, when you see something that you disagree with, call it out. You don't have to be a troll. You don't have to be a meme like me. You don't have to do any of that. But you should call it out, or you should speak to people about that. And you should not let it go underneath the table. Because otherwise we get to a point in which our field is currently at, where these big heads are talking, saying the most just insane takes that nobody agrees with. And everybody's just like, yeah, that's what we're going to go with today. Sprinting to get faster is going to be our fucking massive revelation in our field, which is the Mike Boyle idea, right? Like that should tell us so much. Is one of the biggest philosophical changes in our field is you should sprint to get faster. That was the big thing that Boyle he openly says that is his big idea that has changed within the past 10 years. If that is your big idea, if that is the thing that has changed your training, something as simple as that, like, oh, no shit, you should sprint to get faster. Like, duh. Like, what are we talking about? Man, if that is your massive revelation, if that's your epiphany moment, we have a lot of issues with our field. And I believe a lot of the issues come from not being able to speak our own mind, fear of speaking your thoughts, and fear of pushing back on bad ideas like that. So, want to urge people, if you see something from a big coach, you see something from me, you see something from Will, push back. And you know what that's going to do? Again, it's going to bring the competition aspect out of it. You push back on an idea with me, I'm going to push back on you. I guarantee it. I guarantee I'm going to push back on that idea with you. And it's going to make one of us better. You're either going to come with a really, really good argument and you're going to destroy me. And I'm going to be like, well, fuck, dude. I just got owned in that argument. I'm going to have to go work on my thought processes or work on my memes or even just work on my ability to communicate my message. Maybe I just didn't do a good job. Or you're going to go do that. But sitting in that middle ground of blocking people, it's just not helping anybody. And it's not moving the field forward in the way that we virtue signal that it does. It just makes it easy for the tyrants. That's all it does. It creates this echo chamber where they constantly feel right, saying the stupidest things in the world, like you shouldn't pick up dumbbells off the bottom rack or it'll hurt your back. Bro, what? That's what we're talking about? Athletes picking up dumbbells off the bottom rack because it puts too much stress on their lower back? That was a legit tweet from Mike Boyle. Oh, the insanity there, man. And it's because people don't speak up. So if I'm getting 400 DMs, I better see 400 tweets about this and 400 things talking about the philosophies that you want me to talk about. You want me to be the scapegoat for. All of you coaches that are doing that, start speaking your mind. Start saying these things. I think it's really important. And that, most of all, that challenge, that tyrants being safe and complicit, is why tyrants despise comedians. It's why tyrants don't like jesters. It's why Boyle does not like memes. It's because it's the only way that you can get the truth out there, where they have to face it. And they're like, oh God, people are going to see this. People are going to agree with this. People are going to go with this. And it causes that fear, and it causes that aspect of, we need to shut this down. Anything that can't be laughed at, there's probably not a lot there. There's probably not a lot of truth there, right? Anything that cannot be challenged is a tyrant in the making. It is being defended because it needs to be defended, right? You can come at me for a lot of stuff. You can come at me for any philosophical idea. At the end of the day, I know I'm a good person, right? You can't come at me for not being a good person because it doesn't stand on anything. I won't get offended by that because it doesn't, in the real day-to-day reality of things, it doesn't stand on any truth. But if you come at an idea, you come at something with a meme, and it does hit a chord again, man, that reaction, it just watch how people react to these memes, and it should tell you a lot about the actual idea behind it. All memes should be able to be challenged. All ideas should be able to be memed. All ideas should be able to challenge. And if you can't laugh at it, there's something there. And that goes to the power of memes in general, which I feel like is not talked about either, is memes are there to make people laugh. That's great. That's amazing. It is not the only reason they are there. Memes are one of the best ways, and this people do not understand the power of memes. One of the best ways to communicate information of all ways. It's better than a book. It's better than a paragraph. It's better than an article. Memes are the way to do it because memes can actually change something's idea. We are emotional storytelling beings. That's how we operate in the day-to-day life. We do not operate based off facts. We don't. If you have an emotional bias towards something, you are 100% going to act on that over the facts presented to you every single time. If you want to do some digging into psychology, you can do it, but I promise you that is how you act. That is how we interact with the world. Why is that important? Because one of the things that strength coaches do is they say memes are unprofessional. They say jokes are unprofessional. They say you can't challenge that. All these things. So you got to do studies. When I was at and I've told this story a bunch of times, but when I was at the psychedelic conference, they had all of these neuroscientists on the stage, the smartest people in the world, talking about psychedelics, their effects on the brain, all of these studies. And then they brought on these comedians. And one of the things they talked to about with these comedians was, if we want to solidify psychedelics, why would you bring comedians on to make jokes about it, right? Because the MAP's whole premise is to make psychedelics legit again, take it out of the hippie sector that kind of ruined it, the druggy sector that kind of ruined psychedelics, made them illegal, all these type of stuff, and make them legit again. And one of the things that they said was, humor is one of the only ways to change somebody's mind. You will never change somebody's mind that if they believe mushrooms are going to kill their kid, if that's what they believe, they've been raised in that like dare kind of thought process, mushrooms are going to kill my kid. You're never going to present a study to that person that is going to be like, yep, okay, mushrooms are not going to kill my kid anymore because this study says so. No. But what you can do is make them laugh at it. You can make either at themselves, at the dare background, at the mushrooms themselves, at the trips themselves. You can make them laugh at it. And what that laugh does is slows down their emotional reaction to things. They're giggling about something, they're laughing about something, they take a step back. And now instead of being at a 10 out of 10, like I'm anti-mushroom scale, you can bring them to a 6 or 7 out of 10. And when you get them to a 6 or 7 out of 10, you can present them information that gets them to a little bit more of that neutral center ground. And that is the power of memes in the fitness world as well. You make them laugh at somebody like Mike Boyle. You make them laugh at somebody like Knees Over Toes. You make them laugh at somebody like Stuart McGill. That does not mean the whole like truth is in that meme. Your whole goal is to just make them laugh and bring down their emotional connection to the thing. The knees over toes, like knees over toes probably isn't your answer. You make it like the end all be all answer to everything, right? You make them laugh at that and they get out of the marketing scheme that the knees over toes thing is. They're like, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like, why would knees over toes help my shoulders or help my back? Okay, yeah, maybe there is something here. And then you present them with long form information. Then you present them with a podcast. Then you present them with a study. And then you can bring them out of that knees over toe sector into more of this middle ground where they're accepting information. And that is something that I really believe is the power of memes. And when we look at trolls and bad people in our field because they are memeing, I think it is a very silly way to look at the power of humor, the power of making somebody laugh at themselves and making somebody laugh at a method. If you actually want to change minds, it's one of the only ways to do it. We are emotional storytelling beings, and you need to operate in that sector, right? Now for the philosophies, and I think this is important. I think the first part's more important. Like the whole overarching theory of the field in and of itself and why I'm so anti Boyle and the way he handles things is very important because I think people are scared to speak the truth. And when people are scared to speak the truth, truth doesn't get said, obviously. And when truth doesn't get said, the only people that lose out are, well, everybody loses out except the tyrants. The only people that win are the people that safeguard the truth, right? The people that are owning the truth of the moment, right? So I think the first part's really important to get people over that fear aspect, to understand why competition is important, why memes are important, why humor is important, why challenging these ideas and openly stating why I disagree with these ideas is important. Now, the philosophical side of training, and then this is the smaller part, but very important part of why I actually disagree with Boyle and his thought processes, is his his like fragilistic approach to human performance. I just went through his page very quickly. I did not spend a ton of time there, I promise. And through some of the tweets, I saw we can't do dips, we can't do squats, we can't do deadlifts, we can't do good mornings, we can't pick up pretty much anything heavy. We can't move the shoulders in any way that is not just a straight linear path. All of these things are bad. Like, bro, what do we have left? Do we have your unilateral lifts and pull-ups left? Like what are we talking about? We have a human body where we have seen do amazing feats. We've seen people do all of these things and live happy, healthy lives, become freak athletes from deadlifting and squatting and doing good mornings and doing dips and moving their shoulders and all these ranges of motion that they're meant to move in, right? We have seen athletes come through this. We have created this system, and I talk about this when I present, is this system game of the human body is unbelievably complex. There's so much going on. There's so many systems within a system that keep us going. Trying to understand all of that in one piece of a puzzle, it's so hard. So we create systems to simplify, right? And Boyle created this system of clean and cleansy, right? And it's great for a system, but the system needs to go back out to real life, which is sport, which is life, which is real movement. And most systems, and Boyle's included, does not come out to real life. We go into the system to simplify things. Okay, there's so many movements. What are the movements that I swear by? I enjoy unilateral lift. Let's emphasize that. That's great. Okay. Then you come back out to real life. You have to see that they're moving on two legs, that they're squatting, that they're picking things up, that they're getting their shoulders stuck in all of these random and crazy positions. Right. You have to come back out to real life. And what Boyle doesn't do is doesn't leave the system that he himself has created. And when you don't leave that system, you create these fairy tales about athletes. And the danger about creating the fairy tale of these athletes are going to get hurt if they squat. They're going to get hurt if they deadlift. They're going to get hurt if they do good mornings. They're going to get hurt if they pick up dumbbells off the bottom rack. So dumb. If you create these fairy tales, I don't care about Mike Boyle believing in these fairy tales. That doesn't irk me at all. Like, whatever. If you want to go live your life that way, that's great. Do it. That's your life to live. What hurts me is the athletes that come to me that have been stuck in these fairy tales, that really start to believe they are unbelievably fragile, that really start to look at their own bodies of, well, I was told I can't do this movement and I can't do that movement and I can't do it because my body's incapable of doing those movements without getting hurt. Where else can I get hurt? What else can I do? And you get stuck in this very fragile mindset of this almost self-fulfilling prophecy that you stop doing things because you were told they were bad, then you become unable to do things. Then, because you're not doing them, you're unable to squat, you're unable to pick things up off the ground, you're unable to put your shoulders in crazy positions. Then real life comes, right? So these two things are the system that you created. Then real life comes, and you are required to pick something up off the ground. You are required to squat. You are required to get your shoulders stuck in a position in the football game, whatever it is. And you get hurt because of this point where you stop doing these things. You create a body that is incapable of it. So then you get hurt in this side of things. And then it reaffirms the initial point of my body's incapable. See, I told you so, right? And it is a very dangerous game we play with these athletes where at 15 years old, I've seen it as young as 13. They feel incapable. They feel like they're going to break. They are scared of movement. They are scared of being hurt. They are scared of their own bodies. And we have all this pressure on them because of our own fairy tales we have made. And we've created these fairy tales to sell something, to sell a strength conditioning program, to sell the answer. I am Mike Boyle. I have the answer. You have back pain because of back squats. I will take them out. I will solve your back pain answer. I'm importance. I matter. It has nothing to do with your body and your capabilities. It's me and my system that fixed you. And look at all these coaches that I got on this system, right? It's a very selfish and dangerous game we play with these athletes. And it's really hard to break these athletes out of this system and get them to trust their bodies again. And it's not even, it's important in the athletic game. It is very important in the athletic game, but it's even more important outside of athletics when these athletes do get done with sports and they really, really start to run this self-fulfilling prophecy of being incapable, being unable, being broken, right? And it's a very dangerous game we play with these athletes in a nation where we struggle with obesity. We struggle with athletes and people that just don't move because there's no fun in movement, because movement is dangerous inherently, because training is dangerous inherently, right? Of course they don't train, right? So we were talking about the cost of the orthopedic cost is one of the big things that Mike Boyle talks about. Like, how about the cost of killing movement for an athlete, right? Like, how about the long-term effects on making an athlete think he's fragile or she is fragile? What about those costs? Because I guarantee, look at the number one cause of death in the United States, right? Like, I guarantee that those costs are very, very high, not only mentally, but also physically and physiologically, if you want to talk about the actual health of these athletes. So I think we're stuck in a little bit of a conundrum there when you talk about the orthopedic cost of these movements and you negate the psychological cost of these movements and the long-term health cost of these movements and these philosophies that you have for these athletes when they really start to believe they are incapable and unable to do things in life. And when you kill movement and make it not fun, which is, Mike Boyle is all about factory workouts. How can we get it as efficient as possible? How can we move from one point to the next point, to the next point, to the next point? When you kill enjoyment for movement, when you make movement not fun, of course these athletes aren't going to want to train when they're done, right? And they're not going to want to train when they're there either. I would love to, and I wouldn't love to. I've seen it at my old college. Somebody's gonna catch a stray here, and that's unfortunate. But at the old college, when I was leaving, we brought in another strength coach that was a very big Mike Boyle believer. And the amount of texts I have got from the athletes I used to work with that text me and are like, dude, I will never train like this again. I will never perform movements like this again. And all it is just old Mike Boyle. Like, they got all their workouts from old Mike Boyle books, right? And now they're doing them in this factory setting, and it's got to be as efficient as possible, as fast as possible. And there's no real point to training other than just for your sports. And we're just doing it to get in and get out. And the amount of texts I get from these athletes, they're like, dude, this sucks. Like, training sucks. Not only are you losing out on a ton of output in the session itself, but now these athletes don't want to train. They don't want to move after sports. They don't want to perform anything in the weight room. They don't want to do anything because it's not fun, and you've killed that for them. And I really believe that the factory style of training, and again, this is the Joker versus the Harvey Dent thing. If you just want to be the Joker, be like, I'm just trying to make money, which Mike Boyle's trying to do. Like, that's why you do factory, is to get as many athletes in and out as possible. It's to babysit. If you want to do that, that's amazing. Just be open about it. Be like, I just want to be a millionaire, man. I just want to open up a bunch of gyms. I want to do a bunch of courses, make everything clean, and make a bunch of money. That's awesome. That's amazing. You go do that. I mean, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with that philosophy. But at least you're honest. What is tough is when you say, I'm in it for the athlete and their health, and just so they have just an amazing experience. And then you back it up with these factory workouts. One of the tweets that he said, he was proud of this, is like, the kids don't even know my name, or they asked if Mike Boyle was dead or who Mike Boyle was to Mike Boyle's face. Like, that should tell you a lot about the culture there, man. They don't even know who you are. Like, that cannot be an enjoyable training session. Like, again, if you want to be the removed strength coach, the owner of the building, the multimillionaire person that's a business person, that's awesome. Go do that. But you don't on the back end get to preach, I'm doing it for the athletes. The athletes don't even know who you are, dude. Like, that doesn't add up. You can't have best of both worlds. Admit one or the other, or change one or the other, and go from there. And all of that probably touches on the whole, like, disconnected feeling that I have from Mike Boyle in training. Again, he's an old man, and that's okay to be an old man in the field, whatever. Those things are all great. But the level of disconnectedness from training that he has is unbelievable. Again, when we're talking about the dangers of all of these things, the dangers of hurting yourself, when you, like, his big thing is like the lessons that I wish I would have known when I was an athlete, how I wish I would have trained when I was young. It's like, no, dude, you're 70 now. You probably do have to train a little bit differently now because you're 70 years old, right? I don't actually, I have no idea how old he is. Just going off that number. You do have to train differently. Your athletes do not. Your athletes are 15 to 22 super amazing athletes that are pushing the capabilities of their body to reach the next level of their human performance, their human capabilities. They do not need to train like they're 40 when they're 15, when they're 18. It is not helping them, right? That you guys are two different specimens going for two different ultimate goals. And you don't realize that when you're that disconnected. You don't realize how far away from that athlete you actually are and your methods actually are. Be with your athletes. Fuck, go play a sport. I challenge so many coaches, like, you actually have to go play a sport if you're going to understand what the fuck you're talking about, if you're going to stay connected. And that's how I know there's a huge disconnect, because Boyle's big thing is arguing back squats versus unilateral lifts and the importance of the two. It's like, I promise you, when you step up to the plate, when you go to the offensive line, when you're on the free throw line, not a single athlete is worried about back squats versus unilateral lifts. Not a single athlete is thinking about the difference the back squat versus unilateral lift made, right? Those things don't matter when you step up to the plate. They don't matter when you're on the court. There's an athlete that is just much better than you, that back squats, and you do unilateral lifts, and it's just two different worlds there, right? But yeah, we argue about them, and we virtue signal because we're disconnected and we're sitting in our systems. We brought reality into this system that is pretty and clean, that I really feel like unilateral lifts are the difference between back squats, and I'm going to tweet about this and call all these people out in this regard. But you never come out to real life where, oh, it doesn't matter, man. If I do unilateral lifts or back squats, whatever works for me, whatever makes me feel confident when I step on the court, that's what matters, right? And I just feel like we're really disconnected from the actual training methods and what we are saying when we say these things. And my camera died mid-rant. So, that's probably the wrap up of everything. Again, general premises: don't hate the dude. Don't send a bad will on the dude. I disagree fundamentally with how he handles argument and how our field handles arguments and competition. And the fragilistic approach is not the approach for athletes. It might be the approach for you, Mike Boyle. It might be the approach for older people, but it's not the approach for athletes. And I feel like the more you treat them like they're 80-year-olds, the more they're going to act and be 80-year-olds at 20 years old, at 30 years old. And then they have the rest of the life to live where they don't have a connection to movement. They don't have a connection to their bodies. And I feel like that's a very huge disservice we do so that we can make a couple bucks in our factory gyms. So that's the whole message. Hopefully we got something across here. Appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you guys supporting. Keep chopping wood.